For those of you who have not been to City Club before, the organization is dedicated to putting on forums that are of nonpartisan nature that are of great interest to Missoula and the surrounding community. Our format is that we will have a presentation by a speaker or several speakers, and they will present their material. At the end of that, there may be one or two questions, and then we will ask each of the tables to discuss the questions or topics and be prepared to ask one or two questions or make comments after about a 10 or 15 minute of discussion. If you are not a member of City Club, we would encourage you to join City Club. We don't have the forms here today, but they're online. If you look up City Club on the website, we encourage you to join. It helps us pay for the expenses, and there are some perks that go with membership. Our next two forums should be of great interest to you all. The May meeting, a regular meeting, will be on the Montana Methamphetamine Project. We also have a special meeting in May that's called What's Worth Preserving. That will be on Friday, May 12th, in which that will be at 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. in this room in a meeting that is combined with the Historic Preservation Commission. And I think you will find that of great interest. And then the June meeting is going to be on the passenger rail service in the Bitterroot Valley proposal, and we think that that will also be of great interest. Hope that you can come and join us for those meetings. It's now my great pleasure to introduce to you R.J. Nelson, who is the volunteer chief of Missoula County Search and Rescue, and he will introduce other speakers and relate to you their particular activities.
I'm going to try to do this without the microphone so that I can move around a little bit. It makes me less nervous. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit about search and rescue. What it is, what we do, how we perform our missions. And I brought some folks with me today that hopefully will be able to spread out a little bit and have some one-on-one with folks who have questions that maybe they don't want to answer to the group. So I'll make those introductions. Remember Melinda Roscoe, first table here. Shane Stack, Larry Schmill. Our assistant chief is Jamie Emick. Raise your hand. Ben Ellers. And our sheriff coordinator, Detective Dave Brennan, Missoula County Sheriff's Office. So search and rescue was established in 1959. It is an all-volunteer effort, other than Dave, he gets paid, but he's not a member of our group. He's just the boss. Members put in over 3,000 hours of volunteer time last year. And we have about 30 members in our group, so that comes out to average about 100 hours per person. I can tell you for folks like Larry, and I think Ben's setting a new land speed record this year with his hours. It's a significant more amount of time than just the 100. Those hours represent our missions, our training, educational events that we put on, public relation, community events, equipment maintenance, and administration. All the things that go with running a nonprofit group, with the equipment, and with training for the types of activities that we need to be prepared to do. Our members are all required to be citizens of Missoula County, at least 19 years old, of good moral character, and they pass a background check because of the stuff that we deal with in assisting law enforcement on evidence searches and things of that nature. Each month, our group meets on the first Wednesday at 7:30 at our meeting room. to go over administration, unit business, to debrief searches, and talk about those types of things. We also have a training night each month. It's planned well in advance, and we have recurrent training that we do every year, the first aid CPR, all that kind of stuff that we have to do every year. And then we have additional trainings because we operate boats and snowmobiles and do climbing and rope activities and swift water and all those things that we need to maintain currency on. Our members are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as part of the membership, you have to provide a lot of your own personal equipment and gear. We're pretty fortunate in Missoula County. The community's been pretty good to us. So we can provide our members with some of the equipment that we need. But the clothing, the outdoor clothing, the GPSs, a lot of people buy their own radios. There's a lot of expense that goes into this for each member. In fact, we use people's personal snowmobiles, ATVs, their trailers, and vehicles quite often. We would not be able to do what we do if people didn't bring their own stuff with them. So let's talk a little bit about what our mission is. The missions that we perform include land searches, snowmobile operations. We're the only public safety diving team in Missoula County, so we handle all of the underwater stuff, whether it be evidence or recovery or anything like that. We have a K-9 unit. Jamie's in charge of that part. Boat operations, swift water rescue, high and low angle rescue, ELT operations for downed aircraft, evidence searches and assisting local law enforcement. We do mutual aid missions where we go and help other counties out when they have a large mission or lack a certain skill that maybe we can fill in for them. Provide educational opportunities in the community, avalanche response, tracking and sign cutting, ice rescue, and then we provide safety services for river races and water events and those types of things. I think we're pushing close to 30 calls for service since the beginning of October. We've been a little busy lately, and so I haven't actually gone back and added it all up, but in January it was 20, and we've had a lot since then. At that time, we had 11 lost or overdue person events for a total of 17 people, 2 evidence searches, a downed aircraft underwater mission, 3 swift water missions, a safety mission for the Lewis and Clark reenactors that came through this area, 2 mutual aid requests, 3 dive team events, and assisting law enforcement on an airplane wreck identification. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we've been doing since October. In order to do that, we have to work cooperatively with other groups because we can't do all of this on our own. We work pretty closely with St. Patrick's Hospital Life Flight, rural fire departments, City of Missoula Fire Department, Highway Patrol, obviously the Sheriff's Office, Missoula Police, the QRUs, Civil Air Patrol, Air Force Rescue Command Center, Ski Patrol units, other Western Montana search and rescue units, and most recently the Missoula Smoke Jumpers.
What's QRU?
That's the quick response unit. We just always call them QRUs. It's the local ambulance medical folks. So why am I here telling you about search and rescue today? Well, I got a really nice invitation to do so. But there's a little catch too. I want to tell you about a mill levy that Search and Rescue has asked the Board of County Commissioners to place on the June 6th primary ballot. Search and Rescue has been funded for over 45 years by private donations from the community. All of the stuff that we do, the training, the equipment, the cost for missions and operations, has all been based on donations. And it's been really good. But we are competing in Missoula with a lot of very good causes. I have not researched this, but several people have told me that there are as many or more nonprofits in Missoula per capita as in Boston, which is great. That's one of the really nice things about living in Missoula, but it makes it really tough for our unit to go out and raise the money and do all of the things that I told you about. in here. It becomes very time consuming, and we just haven't, with the competition, brought in the type of funds that we need to purchase the equipment that we simply, I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but we have to have it to do a good job. State law allows for each county to approve up to 1 mil to fund their search and rescue activities. We met as a unit and decided that that would be too much. So we are asking, and it will be on the June 6th primary ballot, for the approval of 1/2 of a mil, which represents about $80,000 in income to search and rescue, which is way more than the less than $8,000 that we brought in last year. We have gone through reserve monies that the unit had built up over the years because our donations have significantly dropped off. It's not that if we don't get the mill, we're not going to go perform these missions. But I can tell you that it is going to be more dangerous for our folks, and we won't have quite the capability as we would like to have if we don't have the right equipment, we don't have the right training, we don't have the things that these folks need to go and actually do the job. 1/2 of a mil in Missoula County on a $200,000 home is about $2.15 a year. It is in perpetuity, so that means it will be on the tax rolls forever. But, and I'm going to sound like a total politician now. We have agreed as a unit, and it's because of the process, we don't want to ask the taxpayers for things that we don't need. So we will be required to prepare a budget every year to submit to the county commissioners. They have to approve that budget. And so we have to be able to justify the purchases and things that we make. If that budget does not reflect $80,000, then that money is not levied on the taxpayer. Now I can tell you that to get our snowmobiles and on a fleet rotation, our 1989 Suburban, that we got the duct tape on the window because it whistles if you get going over 35. Which is only when you're going downhill, because otherwise you'll never get going that fast. Once we get established and we get the equipment that we need and we have it on a fleet rotation, it won't take $80,000 to do this, and it will not be reflected in that budget, and it will not be levied. But I can tell you that for several years to begin with, it will be there, because we need to make up for lost time, and $80,000 isn't going to do that right off the bat. So, $2.15. Again, I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but these folks right here go out and we save lives. We go and take people that are in a time of need, bring them out, and we're the only ones that do that. What we're asking for is the equipment, the training, the money to make this happen so that we can provide the highest level of professional service that's possible. We think that's what people expect, and we think that's what people deserve. So I'll take a couple questions, and then maybe we'll have some table discussions and come back. Yes.
My nephew is on search and rescue in Marion County in Oregon, and I think the work that you guys do is outstanding. It's been good for him, and I appreciate all that you do. What do you intend to do with your first 2 or 3 years budget? How will you allocate your funds if this mill levy passes?
The budget would reflect about 55% for equipment. 25% would go into a fund to establish our own storage area for our cache of equipment in the Sealy Lake area. We're organized into 3 squads, so we have 2 in Missoula and 1 in Sealy Lake. We're one unit, we train together, we operate together. But in order to provide a quicker response, we've got some equipment in that area. Right now it's in a rented storage unit that's not heated. And so we can't keep our GPS and our radios. They have 2 radios and 1 GPS up there. We've got to keep that at a member's house so that it doesn't freeze and go through the temperature changes and all of that. We would like to, in cooperation with possibly Sealy Fire, the Sheriff's Department, put together where we could have a common meeting room, storage area for search and rescue that's actually heated so that we can provide the quicker response. And we're not buying equipment and replacing equipment because it's being damaged, because we can't store it properly. 10% would go to training costs. A lot of times with the technical things that we do, we've got to bring trainers in from outside of the area. We did a week-long training. We happened to kind of fall into some grant money and did a week-long training on managing land search operations. And it was great. You know, we had put a lot of people through that class. It's really, you know, enhanced our ability to manage what we're doing. But it's an expensive deal to bring somebody in that's world-renowned and to train for, you know, a 40-hour class. 5% to operations and 5% to a reserve fund, up to $40,000. And at that point, we feel that we could do an unplanned equipment replacement and not have a gap in service if something were to happen with that. I can tell you that Larry's been a member for a very long time. We had a 1968 International school bus. Is that Larry and 2 other men and 1 boy would have to steer because it was not car steering. And as long as a football field. And it was great. These guys built it. I mean, they did all of that work on it. It was getting to the point where we couldn't use it in the mountains. It wasn't the safest thing, and only a few of the members were really capable of driving it. So we donated that to a county in eastern Montana, and they can just drive a big circle because they don't have to worry about hills or anything. Just barbed wire fences. That thing's pretty tough. But we bought a 1989 hotshot rig, and we've demoed that. We've had it painted, and our own members are going in. We build our own countertops in it for math tables, and we're doing all the wiring ourselves. We're doing a lot of the, we do our own oil changes, and we got some seats and put in it, and we're doing all of that work ourselves to be frugal and be responsible with the money that has been donated to our unit. It's not going to be like the brand new $200,000 mobile command posts that roll out of Indiana and get shipped all over to big departments and that. But it'll be very usable, and it actually helps us get our members invested in what we're doing. And we'll be out of it for $15,000 instead of $200,000. So I use that as kind of an anecdotal example of how we're trying to do the right thing and patchwork this stuff together.
I had a question about individual liability. If you go looking for somebody who skied out of bounds and snowball, or went up a road that was closed, or went around they went someplace where they weren't supposed to go. And as a result, all these people are looking for them. Is there any, how liable is a person for the costs of, I have a friend who worked at a snowball. People snowing and ski out of bounds, they get lost, all these people have to go looking for them, helicopters. Do you ever
Charge people?
Yes, I mean,
Well,
for somebody.
oh, the question is, somebody makes a bad decision and kind of puts themselves in the position of needing to be rescued. What is there any liability on their part? Do they have to pay for their own rescue?
This is in a situation where they clearly asked to draw a line.
Has to draw a line. Now, let me respond to that part first. What that drawn line is the boundary for the ski area. It's not that you can't go in the public lands, into the wilderness area. It's perfectly legal. You can go if you wanted to and take off and, you know, as long as you're not on a mechanized machine, go from one end of the wilderness area to the other. What the sign says when you leave snowball ski area is that you're leaving the controlled area. So you're responsible for your own avalanche, you know, awareness. We're not going to come get you as a ski area. Search and rescue is going to have to get called, and you might get charged. It also says it on the trail map when you're talking about being out of bounds. But as far as the charging for rescues, I'm going to ask our members that are sitting at each table not to give away what we've talked about, but to get the opinions of the other folks sitting with you. Let's use that as a table discussion and then come back and see what each table came up with. Because I get the question just about every time I do a presentation. And then I'll kind of tell you where our unit's coming from at the very end. So can we do that for maybe the next 10 minutes?
Okay, let's just break and have the table discussions for the next 10 or 15 minutes. There is a representative of the search and rescue team at each table so that you can ask them questions and also use this as a jumping off point.
So the topic was discuss, what this gentleman brought up was liability on the part of a person that gets themselves, puts themselves in a time of need or ends up in a time of need. So, did you guys have discussion on that? Did you come up with anything?
They have some great suggestions.
Jamie, our assistant chief, is going to be the spokesperson.
Well, they had some great suggestions on how we might encourage people who we've helped come out of the wilderness or, bad situations, that maybe they could make a donation or make, and I thought we never suggest that. I think that would probably be embarrassing for the person, but, and so I think through that they may have figured out our philosophy on charging for searches. Yeah, skirted the issue. So.
Well, we asked Jamie, and I don't know if she was sure about this. We asked Jamie if I think there's a such thing, I don't really know, something about a rescue insurance. I know sailors on the ocean do it. They can get insurance for any kind of rescue they need, which can be extremely expensive on the ocean. But do you have any means to get that resource? If somebody has insurance for rescue, since you don't charge, you really couldn't ask their insurance company for any money. What do you think about that?
I've heard of the rescue insurance before. I don't think we've ever run into that. I don't think we've ever found anybody that had the insurance. That's a very interesting question, though, that we probably might want to look at. We were talking at our table, and I brought up the personal locator beacons that are now being sold to folks that if they can get in the area where their cell phone doesn't work and they need to be rescued, they can activate that. And it goes off the satellite to the rescue command center, and it tells you, what the location is. That information goes to the search and rescue units, and they go to the rescue. But it's along those same lines. It's people preparing for being lost or being stranded.
And we didn't get around to asking. Well, I'll let that go.
Okay, other table.
We discussed the issue, and one of the concerns is that if people assume there was some kind of monetary liability or even an embarrassing suggestion of contribution, that they might wait an extra day. The spouse might say, I haven't seen my husband, he's supposed to be home, so they call all the family members and try to figure out everything else. And then by the time somebody calls search and rescue, it's a day later. And that's not ideal. That's not what you'd want. So we didn't really decide that you should have a charge. I do think that the success of the mill levy will have a sharp edge on the other side, and that is if there was a proposal to have people feel an obligation to pay, their reaction might be, I'm a taxpayer, I paid for the mill levy, didn't you ask for enough, or something like that. So I think that gets stirred into the mix there. But obviously, even a full mill wouldn't pay for all the time of the people who leave work and donate and their personal equipment. So I guess if as long as there's people who get psychic income from solving these kinds of problems, we're going to be lucky, and we're going to do things like pass the half mill, and that'll keep it going. So, but I guess I've been convinced, and I hadn't thought about it, that we don't want people to think if they call search and rescue that it's going to end up in the collection agency or something like that. That wouldn't work.
I was interested in how other cities fund search and rescue, particularly Great Falls and Billings, as well as some of the other smaller cities in the state.
I don't have information on all of the counties in Montana, but I do know that the ability to ask the taxpayers for the 1 mil is a state law, so that is available to each county. Ravalli County has some mill levy income, I'm not sure at what level. Flathead County has a portion of a mill, I'm not exactly sure what level it is there. They're probably, and Lewis and Clark County, I believe also. They're probably in western Montana 3 of the best equipped units. We've worked with Flathead and Ravalli on mutual aid stuff back and forth, and they're great to work with, and they've got really shiny trucks and stuff like that. So I know they've got it, but they've got, you know, Ravalli County has new radios, you know, they've got stuff where we're patchworking stuff together, and that's part of what we're looking at is, you know, this could really be a good thing. Most of it's on donations. Some folks, what was it, Treasure County, Dave, got like $1,500 a year from the Sheriff's Department to do trainings and meetings and stuff like that. But they may only have a half a dozen people in their team too. And they may only get called out once or twice a year.
But for you and your willingness to volunteer your time and money to do it, what would Missoula County do if you just folded up and said you wanted to go back to having a life?
Dave, what are you going to do when we all dead?
The sheriff is responsible by state law for search and rescue operations, so if that were to happen, he'd have to send the deputies either on duty or overtime, and it would be an incredible cost to the county. What the volunteers do is invaluable, because if you had to pay guys to do it, it would break the bank.
Does the county own snowmobile to go on a search and rescue?
We do, but you got to pay the guys to ride them.
What did you come up with on charging folks for?
We did.
We had more discussion on all kinds of topics.
Okay.
Well, the one I meant to ask you was there's cost, but then there's also one you all get first kill. And it's just sort of how light. Oh, sorry. No, that was one of the, I guess when I asked that question initially was there's the cost of
The
something.
human cost?
But then what happens if somebody's responsible through their actions for the death of somebody that comes to try to save them? And they live when somebody dies, nothing happens to them in the eyes of the law.
Well, I think that if you're responsible for injuring, you know, if you overtly do something that injures or causes somebody else to be in danger, then yeah, there would be a criminal remedy, or possibly even a civil remedy, or both, for those things. I can tell you that the way we train and the way we operate as search and rescue is, number one, we take care of ourselves, then we take care of our teammates, then we take care of our victim. Because if we don't do it in that order, we end up getting ourselves in trouble, and then we got a whole bunch of victims to deal with. But safety, I mean, there's just some things that we look at and say, we're not doing that. Yeah, the car's leaking gas into the Blackfoot, but we're not going to send divers in there for that. I'm sorry about the fish and the plant life and all that, but there's 4 feet of ice on top of that. We're not going to do that. So we make calls like that, and sometimes suspending a search. You have to make those calls. Yeah, the person could be out there, but given the circumstances, we can't take too much risk in putting our people in the field. We have a spokesperson in there.
Somebody just did. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, we arrived at the conclusions that everyone else did. We value search and rescue. I think we all want to live in a community or in a county where if someone's in danger, there are trained, qualified people to go look for them and rescue them. I don't think that we came to a conclusion that it makes any sense to charge people for search and rescue services. We were just starting to get into whether there should be a stupid tax on people who who ignorantly endanger themselves and the search and rescue people, but we didn't get that issue resolved either.
So now I get to answer your question. I'll kind of put everything together from our unit's perspective. We generally don't get called out on a mission because of one bad decision. You can look back over what somebody did after we're debriefing a mission and see a pattern of several bad decisions stacked on top of one another. You can also see that the situation improves when they stop and make a better decision. Or realize that I made a mistake and I'm going to correct it and do something differently. I mean, you can follow this pattern. So it's never going to be the one stupid decision task. It would be like multiple. When we make bad decisions and we're lost in the backcountry, we're in medical need, we've got these issues, the mindset, think about what your mindset's going to be. Are you going to be thinking rationally? Are you going to be thinking logically? Are you going to be thinking, I don't care what it costs, I want to be rescued?
Would you tell us a story? Would you tell us an example of exactly something where these dynamics came out of the situation?
Little
Where someone made a
anecdotal
bad
example.
decision and then made a good one or whatever. So what you're actually doing is what you're dealing with.
Yeah, let me finish up why we don't charge, and then I'll try to think of one really quickly. So people aren't making good decisions anyway. You add the anxiety of being lost, maybe being cold, hungry, scared. Are you going to make a good decision and say, I don't care what it costs, it's not worth my life? Generally speaking, people are going to be thinking in the back of their mind, I can't afford $10 million or helicopter time or anything else to get out of here. I'm going to try to work this out. I'm going to go a little bit more. I think I can get this figured out on my own. And what happens is they get deeper into the woods, it gets darker, they're gone longer, and you'll have somebody at each table testifying to the fact that the weather never gets better. It always rains harder, or snows more, we lose sign, we lose ability to use canines because they're deeper. It actually makes delaying that call for rescue makes it more difficult and more dangerous for our folks when they go to effective rescue.
Just like a fire.
Just like a fire. We like the calls where we get down and we load equipment and we're driving across town to get somewhere and we get canceled because the person showed up, or called from the bar. The other part about charging for rescues is, what do you charge? What do you charge for Larry's volunteer time? Do we charge however many hours we put in that year and divide it up? Because we volunteer and build our own equipment and maintain our own equipment. Do we charge for that? There's just no real way to do it. The other part is that charging and collecting are two very different things. Okay, I think I can think of one person in the last 12 months that we've gone and collected that could have written us a check to cover what we had done. So, you get the college kids that's out of bounds skiing. Yeah, did he make a bad decision? Yep. I mean, that's just part of living in Western Montana. We don't want to discourage people from recreating in the outdoors. I mean, that's why we live here. Go out and enjoy it. Do it safely. But if you need help, call right away. It makes it easier for us. I'll tell you about a series of bad decisions, and I'll use a couple of rescues from this winter. We had a gentleman that skied out of bounds at Snowball. Not just one, we had like 12 of us. But only had to go get 4 of them. And he wasn't familiar with the area, and he was walking, and he got scared, and now he can't go any further. So he uses his cell phone, and he calls it. One of our other assistant coordinators gets the call. We go out. I get a hold of Life Flight. They're on their way back from Helena on a patient transport. They land, they take the cell phone number, and they fly around the mountains, calling him on his cell phone. And they finally find him, and then he tells them, I'm over here, and so they fly and land. They can't land because he's on a steep hillside. But they kind of hover near him and mark it on the GPS, radio to us. We get our snowmobiles unloaded, we drive up. I knocked myself off a snowmobile by hitting a tree that was rolling across the trail. It was kind of embarrassing. We get up there, and he is just, Life Flight had dropped him a bag of equipment, so he's sitting in the sleeping bag, eating their trail mix, drinking their juice, and everything's great. Well, he thanked us, and he just fell all over the top of himself. We bring him out. This is on a Tuesday. So we go up to snowball training because we train with the ski patrol every year. And we get back and we've done the overnight thing, sleeping in the snow caves and doing all the medical stuff and the avalanche stuff. And we get home and everybody's drying their gear out and repacking their packs, and the pager goes up. We got 2 kids on snowboards that are missing. Well, they made a series of bad decisions. The first one was they didn't listen to their mother. Because she had sat them down and told them, I read an article in the paper about this guy that skied out of bounds. And you have to promise me you're not going to do that. And the one kid said, yeah, that's what he said. Sure, Mrs. Smith, no problem. Well, the sheriff's deputy called me and said, you're never going to believe this, but we've got another missing snowball, 2 of them. I said, okay, where are they at? What are they describing? Well, I think the sun's on their left, but it's behind the mountains. And from what they describe, we can kind of figure out what drainage they're in, what ski run they left, that type of thing. And then he calls me back and he says, well, he's onto some footprints, these 2 guys. So I told him to keep following the footprints, because a lot of people ski back there and then walk out. They'll leave a car up at Evero and walk all the way out and drive home. Then he called back and said, footprints stop, but there's snowmobile tracks. I said, call them back and tell them to stay put. And we went and got the snowmobiles and we followed our exact same snowmobile tracks right back to where we picked up the first guy 5 days earlier. The one who the kid's mother had told him about. He actually ended up in the kid's same footprints. We towed these 2 out. And the mother called about a week later and asked Deputy Peterson, please relay her thanks that she did not stick around to thank us personally because she was so infuriated with her son. But to add, would you please tell Search and Rescue that if they need any of their vehicles washed or the shop cleaned or anything like that, that I have 2 young men that would be more than happy to come down and volunteer their time. So we do get donations of that from there. But the bad decisions were, they didn't have any water, they didn't know where they were going, and they made a wrong turn. And once 3 or 4 people make a wrong turn, now there's a trail going the wrong way. And that's what happened at Snowball this year. I'm convinced that that's why we had so many of them, because they all came out in the same area.
So
They followed the other guy that didn't know what was going on. That's why you always buy new textbooks when you're in college. You don't want to read other people's highlights.
You mentioned you do some training with ski patrol up there. And I just talked to my son, my California son, last night. He skied at Mammoth 2 days after the loss of the ski patrol people up there. And I don't know if you know details that you can share about that, but his perception was that there were a large number of ski patrol people that actually were treated for inhalation. When they, after the third one that died was only trying to save the other 2 out of this bench. And then others that tried to do some of the rescuing. So when you're doing your own training, making your own decisions about that, taking care of yourself first, what do you think happened there if you're willing to share?
I'm not familiar with exactly what you're talking about. I just listened.
That's okay.
I'm interested though, so now I'm going to have to go back.
Well, there was what he said was that there was an 8-foot snowfall in the previous storm. One of the vents on Mammoth was covered and created a bubble that collapsed. 2 guys went in, they were going up there to mark. Collapsed, went in. The third one, experienced guy, went in to try to save them. He died also, and then others that were around. And they actually closed the mountain the next day, which was Friday, because of lack of ski patrol people. Reopened it Saturday, which is when he skied. So it's kind of an interesting problem, but I'm just
You're
curious.
talking about like a geothermal vent that created a bubble there?
Yeah. They were actually, the ones that died apparently were asphyxiated, lack of oxygen, with CO2 is filling it. Anyway, if you don't know, that's fine. But it's just the series of decisions that we all go through, whether it's we're lost or whether you're there to help fix stuff. Just curious if you do ever learn about that, what do you think happened with
I
them?
think people make snap judgments, thinking that they're going to help, or, I was just looking on the web at Edmonds Underwater Dive Park. I'm going to dive in Seattle next month, and they had some articles on drownings in that area, and they had like 3 during this 1 month period. And I think 2 out of the 3, one was a diver in the park, but the other 2 were rescuers that drowned. You know, spontaneous volunteer rescuers that are, you see some kid in the water and they tried to swim in after him and they drowned and the kid made it out. So I think that happens more often than not.
One of the things that we may be able to help with in terms of school is helping kids that are interested in the outdoors or helping with this kind of thing, just helping them problem solve or go through some kind of a triage decision list about what you do might be really beneficial.
Well, and some experience and confidence really helps. The other thing is that ultimately we'd like to provide the Hug a Tree program to every kid by the time they're 5th, 6th grade in the county. Now, it's a big task, but I think that we've got the commitment from the members if we had the funding, because it's an expensive program to put on. They're rewriting it right now, so it'll all be brand new with the coloring books and pencils and all that stuff that goes with it. Yeah. But that's not what we do.
We'll like to take it.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
They have a bulletin board up here, and if you want to come up and look and also have any other questions, please feel to do so. We're adjourned.